So everyone can hear me. Good morning, everyone. We're in Masechta Middos. Before we begin, just an announcement about tomorrow's shir, Mirz Hashem. Tomorrow, shir will begin at 10 in the morning, and that will be the starting time for each shir beginning tomorrow. Instead of 10:15, it'll be 10. Thursday, the shir schedule just for Thursday will be a little different. We'll start at 10. We'll end the Middos shir at about 10:30, a little shorter. We'll go to the Ramchal. I think the Middos shir will be 10:35. It'll be a little shorter. The Ramchal Tevunos will go to about 11, also a little shorter. And then we will have the usual Parsha shir from 11, but instead of an hour Parsha shir, it will be a half-hour Parsha shir, and that would be the Thursday schedule. So 10 o'clock would be the starting time every day, and every day, Sunday through Thursday, we would be doing Middos and Ramchal. Thursday, we also start at 10, but we'll have a shortened Middos, a shortened Ramchal, and we'll have some Parsha. Okay, today we're going to hopefully finish the first Mishnah about the Kohanim and the Leviim and the Shmirah of the Beis HaMikdash. And Mirz Hashem, after we finish the next Mishnah, which we'll start learning Bli Neder tomorrow, we'll be able to go to the Rambam Hilchos Beis HaBchira and learn the Rambam Hilchos Beis HaBchira and the halachas that we just learned from the Mishnah. We go from the Mishnah to the Rambam. We learn the halachas of how to guard the Beis HaMikdash. So in order to understand where we are, we're going to have two pictures available for ourselves today. One is the picture of page 7. There were about 12 pages that were emailed out several days ago. The first 2 pages are called diagrams. And then there are 10 pages of Masechta Middos. Page 7 has a picture on it, and it looks like this. That's a picture. It's a picture of the Har HaBayis with the Beis HaMikdash in it. That's on page 7 of the Mishnayos. And then we're going to need page 9 of the Mishnayos, which is a more detailed picture of the Beis HaMikdash and its gates. Heath, is there a way that I can enlarge myself so I can see exactly what people are seeing? I'm only a small box right now in the right-hand corner.
If the Reb clicks on the small box,
yes,
it should get larger, and he'll see himself. One user suggested Alt F2.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now I see myself and I understand what I'm doing. Okay, so page 7 has this picture of the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash and the Har HaBayis. That's one picture we're going to look at. And page 9, which is also the Har HaBayis, but it's a more detailed picture of the Beis HaMikdash and the openings. Okay, those are the 2 pictures we'll refer to. So let's see where we are. We're in the middle of building the Beis HaMikdash. We keep on saying this. We're not the architects making pictures. Well, literally by learning Masechta Middos, we're building a Beis HaMikdash. We're builders. We'll talk about that a little in the Parsha shir tomorrow. We're building here. So let's see where we are in building. We want to make sure that there are guardposts for God's palace. And we learn out from Sukkim that there are 24 places that there were guards. 3 places were designated for Kohanim, and 21 places were designated for Leviim. However, since there's a pasuk that says, "V'yulavu alecha v'shasucha," that the Leviim shall assist Kohanim in the work of the Kohanim, Wherever a Kohen was a guard, there was a Levi there that was a guard to assist him. So in the three places, three of the 24 places that were designated for Kohanim, there was also a Levi there to assist him. Again, each place, machlokes, whether there was one Kohen and one Levi, or 10 Kohanim and 10 Levi. If the Kohen was in one of the three places that had a second floor and a first floor, it had an aliyah, then the Kohen would get the more prestigious place to guard, which would be the second floor, be like a lookout tower. The Levi would be on the ground floor. If it was a place that wasn't a first floor and a second floor, but was a room, then the Kohen would get the more prestigious place, would be inside the room, and the Levi would be outside the room. So we learned that the three places that the Kohanim guard are the southern wall, the Beis Haftinas. And the Beis Haftinas was an aliyah. It was an attic. It was a second floor where Kohanim were taught how to make ketores. That means that there was a Kohen above in the Beis Haftinas, and there was a Levi below on the first floor. Place one for Kohanim. The Levi in the Beis Haftinas is not one of the 21 places that the Leviim guarded. The 21 places are separate. We're talking now about Kohanim with assistance of Leviim, but these are Kohanim places. So the Beis Haftinas is a Kohen guard place above, and the Levi assisting below. We go to the northwest wall, and we have the Beis Hanitzutz, the room with the spark where they got fire in case Chas v'Sholom, the fire on the Mizbeach got extinguished. Again, this was a second floor and the first floor. Kohen on the second floor, Levi below. The third place where there was a Kohen was the Beis Hamoked, a big room also on the northern wall. And the Kohen got the more prestigious place. He was inside the Beis Hamoked. And the Levi stood outside the Beis Hamoked. So those are the three places, Beis Haftinas, Beis Hanitzutz, Beis Hamoked, where it was Kohen guard places and Leviim assisting. Then we learned that there are 21 places where the Leviim guarded. 5 to the entrances to the Har Habayis. You're in Yerushalayim, you're walking and you want to go to the Beis HaMikdash, there's a wall around the Har Habayis. So you have to enter the Har Habayis. There were 5 gates to enter the Har Habayis. Obviously, there's 4 corners to the wall. So the Leviim stood guard at the 4 corners of the wall of the Har Habayis and at the 5 entrances on that wall into the Har Habayis. So we have 9 places. Then the Leviim also guarded the Beis HaMikdash. You're walking on the Har Habayis, you get to the Beis HaMikdash. 4 Leviim at the corners of the Beis HaMikdash, and 5 Leviim at the entranceways in that wall that would go into the Beis HaMikdash. So we have at the wall of the Har Habayis 5 and 4, the wall of the Beis HaMikdash 5 and 4, we have 18. And then the Mishnah added for us yesterday additional 3 places on page Ches of the Mishnayos. It says Ve'echad Balishkas HaKorban, which we'll see today. A Levi stood guard in the Lishkas HaKorban. And on page Yud it says Ve'echad Balishkas HaParoches, one in a place called Lishkas HaParoches, a Levi. Ve'echad Lachori Beis HaKaporos, and one behind the Kodesh Kadoshim. And we'll take a look at these 3 today. So we have 5 and 4 Leviim at the wall of the Har Habayis, 5 and 4 Leviim at the wall of the Beis HaMikdash itself, that's 18, and an additional 3 at the Lishkas HaKorban, Lishkas HaParoches, and Acharei Beis HaKapores, 3 Kohanim places, 21 Leviim places, 24 places. We have to remember the rule that we talked about, I believe, yesterday, And that is that since the Kohanim the Kohanim and Levim in their designated places were watching for quite a few hours, according to the Rambam and most Mefarshim, it was just at night, but that night is a long time. And there seems to be very, very select few of Mefarshim that would hold that they guarded day and night. But be that as it may, it's a long time. And in order to be able to guard, you have to, for that kind of period of time, you have to be able to sit. You can't stand so long. Therefore, they set up the places of these guard posts in a place where you can sit. We saw yesterday that there's a rule that ein yeshiva ba'azora el lamalchei beis David bilvad. If you want to take a closer look at it, you can take a closer look at the halacha. It's on Yuma daf Chaf Hey Amid Aleph and Sanhedrin daf Kuf Aleph Amid Beis, and in other places. Whether we learn it out from a pasuk or whether it's halacha Moshe Sinai seems to be some dispute in the Rashis themselves. And we learned about the story with Yerovam ben Nevat, which caused the whole deterioration in the northern and southern kingdom, because Yerovam ben Nevat would not come to Yerushalayim because he would not be able to sit in the Azorah, while Rechavam, the son of Shlomo, could sit in the Azorah because he's a scion of David. And Yerovam feared that it wouldn't look good for him in front of his people if Rechavam was allowed to sit and he couldn't sit, and people would then believe that Rechavam is a real king and he's not, and that would cause him problems. So he set up Avodah Zarah in Beit El and in Dan, and that unfortunately begins the unraveling of the whole first Beis HaMikdash. So we have this rule that no one sits in the Azorah except the sign of the Malchus Beis David. So all the places, the 24 places that have to be guarded in a place where someone can sit. We don't have that problem for the guards on the Har HaBayis, because on the Har HaBayis you're allowed to sit. What do I mean by that? So let's go to the picture so we understand again Har HaBayis versus Beis HaMikdash. If we go to the picture on page Vav, okay, we go to this picture, we see 5 gates that enter the Har HaBayis, and there's empty space. The Beis HaMikdash, the structure does not take up the whole space. The whole space as originally built, the Har HaBayis was 500 amos by 500 amos, and later dimensions changed because of Hortus, which is not our subject for today. But the original Har HaBayis was 500 by 500, and the Beis HaMikdash didn't take up 500 by 500. So therefore, there's empty space on the Har HaBayis that was not Beis HaMikdash. The only place a person can't sit is in the Azorah, which we'll define B'li Neder today. But on the Har HaBayis, you can sit. Therefore, the people, the Leviim, who are guarding the Har HaBayis, what do I mean by that? 4 corners. There's 4 corners, and for this, we can now go to the picture on page Tes. The empty space, this empty space all around the structure, east, Mizrach, Safo, north, Ma'ariv, west, Dorom, south, all the space outside the structure is Har HaBayis. You can sit in this open space for permissible reasons. So there was a Levi that stood here, a Levi that stood here, a Levi that stood here, and a Levi that stood here. 4 Leviim inside the wall of the Har HaBayis, because they were allowed to sit there. Then there were 5 Leviim. If we go back now to the picture on page Vav, there are now 5 Leviim at the gates into the Har HaBayis. What we just looked at was the inside of the Har HaBayis on page Tes, but unfortunately this picture doesn't show you openings in the wall to get to the Har HaBayis. We see that on page Zion, 2 gates to the south, one gate to the east, one gate to the north, Teddy, and one gate to the west. There was a Levi at each of those 5 gates, and he was allowed to stand inside the gate or on the Har HaBayis territory, because you're allowed to sit there. So we have 5 Leviim at the corners of the Har HaBayis inside the wall, and we have 4 Leviim at the 4 corners of the Har HaBayis inside the wall, and 5 Leviim at the gateways in the wall of the Har HaBayis, inside the doorway or inside right next to the doorway. But they're allowed to be inside because they can sit. However, when we get to the Leviim who are guarding the Beis HaMikdash itself, we now have to be careful where these Leviim are going to be, because they can't sit in the Azorah. Okay, so that's going to bring us now to Daf Tes, the page 9. And this is the structure of the Beis HaMikdash inside the Har HaBayis. We're going, for the time being, ignore the front structure to the Beis HaMikdash, which is called the Shar Noshim, the Ezras Noshim. Okay, we're going to ignore that for right now, because there's a question of what the exact kedusha of Ezras Noshim is, whether it's rabbinic. It's a big machlokes here, and it would seem when Shlomo built the first Beis HaMikdash, which is detailed in Sefer Malachim, there's no specific reference to an Ezras Noshim being here, but there was an Ezras Noshim in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay. There was an Ezras Noshim in the Beis HaMikdash. And the Ezras Noshim obviously has the Kedusha of a Beis HaMikdash, but what level of Kedusha is a question. So we're not going to deal right now with the Ezras Noshim. We're moving up to the top half of the square. Leviim are guarding the Beis HaMikdash. Levi corner 1, Levi corner 2, Levi corner 3, Levi corner 4. And you can see on your picture there's the word Levi. But here the Levi is standing outside the wall. Here, the Levi would be, this is the wall of the Har HaBayis. The Levi would be inside the wall of the Har HaBayis. When it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, he's standing outside the wall of the Beis HaMikdash, because if he was inside the wall, he could not sit. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have 5 Leviim who are guarding the entranceways into the Beis HaMikdash. Each of these Leviim has to stand outside the entranceway, because if he stands inside the entranceway, he will be in the Beis HaMikdash and he can't sit. So he has to stand outside the entranceway, and therefore he can sit. So this picture is a wonderful picture. It shows you the Leviim outside each doorway. But now let's take a look at the picture. I'm going to have to look at the picture so I can see it. I can't show it to you at the same time. But let's go through the picture on page 10 by each side. Let's start with the Shar Nicanor. We're going to learn a lot about the Shar Nicanor. That's the eastern gate to get into the Beis HaMikdash, not to the Har HaBayis. If you want, Rabbi say, if you want to get into the Beis HaMikdash, if you want to get into the Har HaBayis from the east side, you're going down from the Har HaZeisim and walking and walking and walking. You want to walk into the Beis HaMikdash from the eastern side. There's a gate there called Shushan Habira, which we learned about. And when you went through Shushan Habira, you're now inside the Har HaBayis. You continue walking, you'd be in the Ezras Noshim. You continue walking, you get to the Shar Nicanor. Shar Nicanor is one of the entryways into the Beis HaMikdash. You see in your picture, under the word Shar Nicanor, Levi. A Levi is guarding that doorway. We go to the Tzafon, and at the wall, it shows Levi. But the Levi is outside the wall. That's one of the 4 Leviim at the 4 corners. We go up a bit to the picture. I'm going to skip now that square room. I'm moving up to the Shar HaKorban. Shar HaKorban is one of the three that the Mishnah adds, 5454. The Shar HaKorban. The Levi is shown outside the doorway. He can't be in the doorway because then he can't sit. We move further up to the Ma'ariv, and we have at the Ma'ariv corner of the Beis HaMikdash another circle Levi. That's the second corner, and he's outside the wall. We now move southwards on the left, on the western wall, and at the corner it shows again a circle Levi, and he's outside the wall. We move down a bit, and it shows Shar HaDelek, and it shows that there's a Levi outside. We move down to the Shar HaBechoros, and the names here are a little, we'll deal with the names. It shows Shar HaBechoros, it shows a Levi outside the doorway. At the Shar HaMayim, it shows a Levi outside the doorway. And then there's the Lishkas HaParoches, which shows a Levi in it. In the Lishkas HaParoches, take a look very closely. The Lishkas HaParoches is on the Har Habayis. It's not inside the Beis HaMikdash. It's outside the wall of the Beis HaMikdash. The Lishkas HaParoches is outside the structure of the Beis HaMikdash. It's in Har Habayis territory. Therefore, in the Lishkas HaParoches, a Levi was able to sit without a problem because he was on the Har Habayis property. We move down, Shar HaBechoros, Levi outside, Shar HaMayim, Levi outside, and now we're at the Doron, we're at the southeast corner. It again shows a Levi outside. So we have a Levi outside each of the four corners of the Beis HaMikdash, a Levi at each of the five. Now there were more than 5 gates into the Beis HaMikdash, but there were only Levium guarding 5 of these gates. There's one guard post that we haven't discussed yet. And that's the guard post. If you go to the northern wall, you will see that there's a box. There's a room. And that's the Beis HaMoked. That's a big room. And in that room, there was a place called Lishkas HaKorban. And that's one of the additional 3 places that the Levium watched, guarded. And you see in the Lishkas HaKorban, there's a circle that says Levi. Now this is a problem by this diagram. It seems to show that the Levi is in Har Habayis territory, and then he would have to stand, he can't sit. The Beis HaMoked, as you can see, is a big room. Part of it is in the Har Habayis territory. Okay. Part of this room is Har Habayis territory, and part of it is in the Mikdash itself territory, which means that if you're in the part of the Beis HaMoked that's Har Habayis territory, you can sit. If you're in the part of the Beis HaMoked that's in Beis HaMikdash territory, you can't sit. The picture would seem to indicate that there was a Levi in here in Har Habayis territory, in Beis HaMikdash territory. So the probable thing that happened here is that the picture is a bit off. If you take a look at the Lishkas HaKorban, you can see that the Lishkas HaKorban itself is part in Har Habayis and part in Har Habayis. Part Beis HaMikdash, part Har Habayis. It could be that the Levi, while he was guarding in the Lishkas HaKorban, he was guarding inside the Lishkas HaKorban that was still part of the Har Habayis. This is a very, very complicated question about rooms that were split between 2 places, and we're going to see that as we learned the Masechta, if part of a room is in the Har HaBayis and part of the room also extends into the Beis HaMikdash, what Kedusha does it have? Does it have Kedusha of the Har HaBayis or the Kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash, which are completely different, not the same Kedusha? For example, the most outstanding probably difference, a dead body or a person who came into contact with a dead body is permitted on the Har HaBayis. A person that came into contact with a dead body cannot go into the Beis HaMikdash. He can go to the Har HaBayis. So if you are looking at this picture, for example, picture on Daf Tes, the entire open area outside the Beis HaMikdash, not only a person who came into contact with a dead body can be in this area. And we learned that out from a pasuk with Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not something that we're making up. That's the halacha. It's a Gemara. In the Har HaBayis area, which is called Machane Leviyah, we'll get to all these ideas as we learn the Masechta. In this area outside the wall of the Beis HaMikdash, a person that came into contact with a dead body can enter. He cannot enter the Beis HaMikdash. So if we have rooms such as the Beis HaMokeh, which are partially in Beis HaMikdash, partially in Har HaBayis, what Kedusha does the whole room have? Har HaBayis Kedusha, and a dead body can go there. Beis HaMikdash Kedusha, and a dead body can't go there. Or do we split it? Half is Har HaBayis, half is Beis HaMikdash. We're going to get to these questions, Bali Neder. But for the time being, let's assume that that Levi, who's standing in the Lishkas HaKorban, and the Lishkas HaKorban itself seems to be part in Har HaBayis and part in Beis HaMikdash, that Levi stood in the Har HaBayis part because you can sit in the Har HaBayis part. The more difficult question is, there was a place, remember there's 18 plus 3. 3 Kohanim, we finished talking about the Kohanim, Beis Haftinas, Beis Hanitzutz, and Beis HaMokeh. 21 places for the Leviyah. 5 at the corners of the Har HaBayis, 4 at the corners of the Har HaBayis, 5 at the doors to the Har HaBayis, 4 to the corners of the Beis HaMikdash, and 5 to the entryways of the Beis HaMikdash. And now we need 3 more. So 3 more, the Mishnah said on Daf Ches and Daf Tes, Lishkas HaKorban, Lishkas HaParoiches, Ve'echad La'achore Beis HaKaporis. Beis HaKaporis means the Kodesh Kadoshim is called the Beis HaKaporis. Because the Oren was there, the Kaporis is on top of the Oren, the Keruvim are part of the Kaporis, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he spoke, the pasuk says his message came mibein hakruvim, came down between the kruvim. So the Kodesh Kadoshim is called the Beis HaKaporis, which had the keruvim on it. It says that there was a Levi in some room that's called Achorei Beis HaKaporis. And so the person who drew the diagram put a room behind the Kodesh Kadoshim. Okay. This is the west. This wall right here is the western wall of the Beis HaMikdash, not the western wall of the Har HaBayis. Here is the western wall of the Kodesh Kadoshim. We need to be careful here. Look what's happening in this picture. And we need to become accustomed to thinking this way. Wall 1, Har HaBayis wall. Wall 2, Beis HaMikdash wall. You entered Shar HaNikanor. You went further, if you're permitted, Kohen. You went further into the Heichal, and Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur into the Kodesh Kadoshim. It says Kodesh Kadoshim. This is the western wall of the Kodesh Kadoshim. So you have a structure in a structure in a structure. You have the Har HaBayis, right here, the most outer walls, get my finger there, the most outer wall, Harabayas. Next set of walls, walls of the Beis Hamikdash. Now inside the Beis Hamikdash, there's a set of walls that encloses the Heichal. In this Heichal was the menorah, the Shulchan, and the Mizbeach HaKtoris, and the Kodesh Kodashim. So we have Harabayas wall, Beis Hamikdash wall, and the Heichal Kodesh Kodashim wall. So, but behind the Kodesh Kodashim wall, there's this room, according to this picture, that's called Achore Beis HaKaporos, the room that's behind the Kodesh Kodashim. After that wall, room, there's the wall of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. So here we're inside, there's no question we're inside the Beis Hamikdash. We're right behind the Kodesh Kodashim. We're in the Beis Hamikdash. And there's a room there that shows Levi, because the Mishnah says there was a Levi in Achore Beis HaKaporos. What do you do with this Levi, according to this picture? He's on the territory of Beis Hamikdash. And most Mefarshim say that this Levi got the job of standing the whole time. He could not sit. He's not a sign of the Davidic dynasty. And this Shomer Levi would have to stand. That is one pshat. There's another pshat that says that the room wasn't exactly right here. Achore Beis HaKaporos just means it was behind the Kaporos, but it wasn't here. It was actually here. And here is behind the wall of the Beis Hamikdash, but inside the wall of the Harabayas. So if you take this room and you put it here, your Harabayas territory, and the Levi could sit. Okay, so we have 3 guard points for the Kohen with the Levi helping him, 21 guard points for the Levi. Now the beautiful part of this picture, again on page 10, is let's take a look at the Beis Hamoked. The Beis Hamoked was one of the 3 places for a Kohen. But besides a Kohen being there, there had to be a Levi there to assist him. And the picture shows that. If you look at the picture, inside the Beis Hamoked, there's a little box. It says Kohen. Because the Beis Hamoked was only 1 floor. So the Kohen's inside, and there's a Levi helping him who stands outside. So the picture shows you Kohen inside, and then outside there's a circle. It says Levi Tafel, the secondary Levi, meaning it's a Levi who's an assistant. This is not a Levi guard point. This is a Kohen guard point where a Levi is assisting. Similarly, if you go to the southern wall, to the base of Tinas, that's a Kohen guard point. But because it was on 2 floors, the Kohen stood above in the 2nd floor and the Levi stood below. And that's indicated in the picture. If you take a look, it shows Aliyah space of Tinas. There's a word Kohen with sort of an arrow showing he's on top. And then there's the word Levi below, and it says Lamata Tafel. The Levi is below as a Tafel. He's secondary. Again, this is not one of the 21 Levi guard places. This is the assisting the Kohen who is the guard there. And finally, the 3rd place where there was a Kohen is on the northern wall, the Beis Hanitzutz. And again, the picture indicates Kohen Lamala. There was 2 floors. This is a Kohen guard place. Kohen is above. Levi Tafel below. There's a beautiful picture. If you take a look at the picture just doesn't show you the doorways to the Beis Hamikdash. That you would have to go to page Vav to see that. But otherwise, it's a beautiful picture. It shows you that there are Leviim at the 4 corners of the Beis Hamikdash, Leviim at the 5 gates into the Beis Hamikdash, a Levi also in the Lishkas HaKorban, a Levi in the Lishkas HaParoches, and a Levi lachore beis hakapores behind the Kodesh Kodashim. He may be the only Levi that had a stand according to this picture. And then you had the Kohanim in their three places, and then you had the Leviim at the four corners of the Har HaBayis inside, because they can sit on the Har HaBayis. And then you had 5 Leviim at the doorways into the Har HaBayis. So it's very simple to remember. Three guard posts for Kohanim and a Levi assisting. If the Kohen is on the second floor, the Levi's on the first floor. If the Kohen is inside, the Levi is outside. In all these places, because they're Har HaBayis, you can sit. So you have 3 Kohanim. Leviim are 5 and 4 and 5 and 4. 5 gates to the Har HaBayis, 4 corners of the Har HaBayis, inside. Beis HaMikdash, 4 corners of the Beis HaMikdash, outside. 5 entryways into the Beis HaMikdash from the outside. And again, 3 additional places. Lishkas HaKorban, Lishkas HaParoches, and Achor Beis HaParoches. So Kohanim 3, Leviim 5 and 4, Har HaBayis, Leviim 5 and 4, Beis HaMikdash, and another 3 places for Leviim. And we have 24 places to guard the Rebbeinu Shel Olam's palace on earth. And guarding the palace on earth is a mitzvah aseh. It's one of the 248 positive mitzvahs. And it's also one of the 365 negative commandments. And according to almost all poskim, it's a mitzvah we can't do today because the mitzvah is to guard the Beis HaMikdash. And unfortunately, we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, but we're building it. We're building it. And not only are we building it, but as I keep on mentioning, we have to have in mind in our tefillos that we want the Beis HaMikdash. In our tehillim, we want the Beis HaMikdash. I said the Shabbos HaGadol drasha. Rebbeinu Shel Olam, please open the shuls, please open the Beis Medrash, means that you just want to go back to the way things used to be. The Nevi'im told us that after the Churban, Be'elem L'Mikdash Ma'at, the shuls will become miniature Beis HaMikdash. You'll be able to go there to daven. Mikdash Ma'at, it's a miniature. And a person's she'ifas, a person's desires, have to mature as he matures. And after 2,000 years of walking into Mikdash Ma'atz, the Rebbeinu Shel Olam is saying, Kinderlach, it's time. Mature, grow up. Broaden your hashkafa, broaden your desires. Open yourself up to bigger ideas. Why do you want to go back to the shul for? So there are people that talk about the reason the shuls are closed because people talk too much in shul. People did this in shul, people did this in shul, so the Rebbeinu Shel Olam took away the shuls from us. This comes from a mentality of everything that God does is to punish. Not everything that God does is to punish. So a lot of things, and God, it's a whole sugya, we'll learn in Ramchal, it's not punishment. When a Jew lives in this kind of gullus mentality, that everything is a punishment, and for 2,000 years we've been living this idea of punishment. We think that everything that God does to us that is not exactly what we want him to do to us is some kind of punishment. The Baal Shem Tov says on a pasuk in Tehillim, we say it in the Shir Shel Yoim, Hu yinahagenu al mus. The Rebbeinu Shel Olam will guide us. And there's 2 interpretations to al mus. Al-mus sounds like al-maves, after death. God will even guide us after death. And the Medrash says al-mus is one word, kemo besoch alamos tofefot. It comes from the word a young child. Alamot means a young child. And so the pasuk in Tehillim means v'huyan agenu al-mus. God will guide us like a child. The Baal Shem Tov said, it's a very important Baal Shem Tov to remember. The Baal Shem Tov said, how do parents teach their children? And let's take the simplest example. You want to teach your child how to walk. So you that you put the child reaches a certain age, and you put him down on the floor gently, and you take your hands away, and he collapses. And you keep on trying this every day until he actually stands. And then you start moving away from him, and you start trying to come. You're trying to get him to take a step. He finally takes a step. You give him a big patch. Thank you, gewaltig, a big clap, not a patch, a big clap. And then he falls down to the floor. You pick him up. The next day you start again. He takes a step and he puts his hands out to you. He wants to fall into your hands. He took the step. So what do you do as a loving parent? You don't let him fall into your arms. You take a step back. You make him more independent. You make him move forward. Take a second step. And Baruch Hashem, he takes the second step and he falls into your arms. He's so happy to fall into your arms. And this continues. And every day you take a little step back, and the child, he's had it already. It's 3 steps, it's 4 steps. Eventually the child learns how to walk. You teach a child how to ride a bike. It starts with training wheels. And then it's time to take off the training wheels. No, Tati, just leave the training wheels on. I'm scared. No. We're gonna, a big she'ifa. We'll take off the training wheels. And you take off the training wheels and you hold the bike. And he rides. Then all of a sudden you let go. And that, sometimes he falls. He says, Tati, what did you do? I told you not to let go. You try again tomorrow. And then you let go and he goes a little. And you let go again the next day, and now the child knows how to ride a 2-wheeler. Hui Nagenu Amusta Baal Shem Tov says, the Rebbeinu Shalom guides us and mentors us like kinderlich. We are his kinderlich. And he mentors us in a way that we can live independent, not independent of him, but an independent life where we feel self-fulfilled. We're not necessarily, Chashom should need crutches. We shouldn't need training wheels. We shouldn't have to have somebody hold our hand to walk. We should be able to walk. We should feel good about ourselves. And so many times the Rebbeinu Shalom moves away from us in such a way that we should grow from it. He's not moving, when the parent moves away from his child to teach him how to walk, he's not punishing the child. The child, there are tears running down the child's face. What are you doing to me? And the hands are stretched out. Tata, mama, please, take me. And you don't take him. Or you want to punish the child. That's for sure. You're giving the child new koiches. The child's going to mature. The child's going to know how to walk. He know how to ride a bike. He know how to do unbelievable things because you take a step back and the child learns how to become bigger and greater. The Baal Shem Tov says, the Baal Shem Tov doesn't punish. He takes a step back so that we can grow on our own, from our own inside, that we can grow in our ruchnius, so that we can become bigger, better people. So this idea that everything that happens is God punishing, God punishing, God punishing, God punishing. And this is what, quote unquote, people talk about Jewish guilt. We always feel guilty because we're always feeling like we're being punished. We're not always being punished. And whether there is even such a thing as a punishment, we'll see in the Ramchal. But it's not punishment. It's not punishment. People want to look at things, and I mentioned this, the Shabbos HaGol Drasha, people have different things that are in their kishkas. There are people that don't like, this is not comments from me. I'm just saying that generally, I'm not saying my opinion. But people don't like shaitels. So they say this and this happening to Klal Yisrael because of shaitels. There are people that are mamish nimbus, right, wrong. I'm not talking about opinions today, from non-kosher phones. And the reason why X is happening because of non-kosher phones. Everybody has their little thing that really troubles them, and whatever happens, it's because of this. People look at the shuls closed, and they're saying, what's the punishment for? What exactly is this punishment for? We talked in shul. We didn't have high enough mechitzas in shul. The women didn't come dressed properly to shul. All the reasons you can think of. And now we're going to do tshuva. The idea is we're going to do tshuva. because we were punished for a sin, we're now going to do tshuva. And after we do tshuva, God will give us back our shuls and our batei midrashos. But if you look at it from a different perspective, we're growing. God took a step back from us and said, grow up a little. For 2,000 years, I gave you a miniature mikdash, a mikdash ma'at. And Kinderlach, you were very loyal to the mikdash ma'at. You spent millions of dollars all over the world building these huge, beautiful batei knesiyos, which will be used when Mashiach comes. And the batei midrashos will be used when Mashiach comes. Gemara Megillah talks about it. Tosfos talks about it. It'll be used. Don't get so nervous that the $1 million buildings won't be used. They'll be used. But Kinderlach, you were very loyal to these buildings. Not that you treated them miserably and you deserve a punishment. Not everything's a punishment. The punishment, I'm saying, Kinderlach, I love you. And after 2,000 years, I want to give you something bigger and better. Habayis hagodol v'akadosh. I want to give it to you. So what are you davening for? Ribbon Shalom, please be meichel me for all the sins that I did in the shul so I can have my shul back. How about Ribbon Shalom, thank you so much for all the beautiful shuls, and I davened in there, and now I understand that you want to give me a much bigger gift. You've taken your hands away so I can take the biggest step like a child. Almost. Ribbon Shalom, I see the loving hug you're giving me. Even though you're taking a step back, you're hugging me. You're hugging me. And today we understand that hugging means taking a step back. You can't hug anyone today. The way you hug a person today is by standing a couple of feet back and blowing him a kiss. Or saying to him, I wish I could hug you. But you can't hug. Ribbon Shalom is hugging us. Let's get rid of this punish, 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 punish. And so we're going to build a Beis HaMikdash. And our tefillos are going to be, Ribbon Shalom, Ribbon Shalom. Tata, I understand what you're doing here. And in Yetz Hashem, all the beautiful shuls, all the batei midrashos, they're going to come to unbelievable, beautiful use. But Ribbon Shalom, I understand you're getting me ready for a bigger, better thing. And I'm being mispal. And not only that, I'm learning Masechta Middos every day. Because I want to build the Beis HaMikdash. And I'm building the Beis HaMikdash by learning Masechta Middos. And we'll talk a bit about that tomorrow. And you hear this all the time. I just had a discussion with someone about it. I mentioned to him, I'm not going to say names, there was a very big levaya, unfortunately, in Yerushalayim. A big levaya means that a big person died, but it was attended by very few people. Rav Bakshi Doron, Zechron Tzadik Levracha, the former Sephardic chief rabbi of Eretz Yisrael. And there weren't that many people as levaya, but the levaya was zoomed, etc. And here I won't mention the name, but a very, very chashuv rav said during the hesped, which you were able to hear if you were zoomed or you were on the phone. He said, Ribbon Shalom, something. He said something to the extent, Ribbon Shalom, please have rachmanas on us. Please let us go back to our shuls, now batei midrashos. And I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. Now, the Dan L'Kaf Zechus is that out of the grief for having lost such a gadol, Adam gadol, like Rav Bakshi Doron, he wasn't thinking straight. But why would someone say today, please have rachmanis on us and let us go back. Go back, let's go backwards. Let's go back to the shuls. How about Ribbon Shalom, please have rachmanis on us and let's go forward. We want the Beis HaMikdash. And so we're building the Beis HaMikdash each day by learning Masechta Middos. We built the Beis HaMikdash, and as I said, we'll talk about it tomorrow in the Chumash here. Rav Pachad Yitzchak, Rav Hutner, and Maimer and Pesach about the tzipiyah. The yearning for the Beis HaMikdash is building the Beis HaMikdash. Mizmar Shir Chanukas Habayis LeDavid, a song to the Chanukas Habayis that David built. David didn't build the Beis HaMikdash. He wanted to. He yearned. But the Ribbon Shalom said, your son will build it. So why doesn't it say Mis Mashiach Chanukas Habayis L'Shlomo? And so we see from the pasuk, Midrashim and Rafutna explains, the yearning is not yearning and Shlomo built it. The yearning is building. Mis Mashiach Chanukas Habayis L'David. But I don't see it. I don't see it. My yearning for the Beis HaMikdash, and through learning Masechta Middos, I don't see walls going up. I don't see Levium guarding. I don't see Kohanim guarding. I'm learning. I'm not building. You are building, but I can't see it. And before we go to the Ramchal, we'll just leave this thought. There are a lot of things you can't see. You can't see Corona, and it can do a lot of damage. And in the Ruchnius world, there are a lot of things you can't see, and they're doing tremendously great things. You don't have to see things for those things to be happening. And a lot of things we think we see are really not happening. And they're called optical illusions. And we've all seen these things of optical illusions. We would be willing to swear that we saw something, and then it turns out we didn't see it. It's an optical illusion. So there are things that we see, and they're really not there. And the things that we don't see and really are there. And so as we learn Masechta Middos, and as we yearn for the Beis HaMikdash, we're building. It's happening. And if we can't see it, that's okay. It's a reverse optical illusion. It's happening. It's happening. But I can't see it. Rather than I see it, but it's not happening. I actually see this happening. Just a reverse optical illusion. I can't physically see it. So Rabbi Sai, we're going to continue learning Masechta Middos the way we're learning it. We'll have some more comments tomorrow, maybe about this Mishnah. And then we're going to go on to Mishnah Beis. It's a fascinating Mishnah, Mishnah Beis. It talks about, just as an introduction, it talks about an Ishar Habayis, so to speak, the supervisor of the guards. And he would walk around the Beis HaMikdash during guard hours, which we'll assume are nighttime, like the Rambam. And if he found a guard that was sleeping during the guarding times, he would whack him. And we're going to learn in the Mishnah about what it means to whack someone when he's not doing his job. And under what circumstances you can give him a whack. Ad kidei kach, that if he doesn't get the message, there was a reshus for this supervisor to take away his clothing and to burn his clothing. We'll take a look at that in the Mishnah. And this seems very, very harsh, but it's not harsh at all when you're sleeping on the job and your job is to guard God's palace on earth. Take a look at that Plineda tomorrow. Let's take a look a bit at the Ramchal, where we're up to in the DaAs Tevunos. And we're on page Gimel. To refresh our recollections, the Ramchal wrote the DaAs Tevunos as a dialogue between an Neshama and the Seichel. The Neshama has questions, the Seichel's answering the questions. The Neshama said, I believe as an article of faith in the 13 Animamins, but 9 of them I believe and understand how they work or understand their truth. 4 of them I believe because my father told me, his grandfather told him, all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu, and I believe whatever Moshe Rabbeinu was taught by the Rebbeinu Shalom. So I believe it as an article of faith. But 4 of these I don't understand in a rational way. And the 4 are Hashgacha. God is watching the world. He's administering the world every moment, every millisecond, every event. Even events that we think are completely unimportant. Everything is with a cheshbon. As we mentioned yesterday, Baal Shem Tov, you see a leaf falling off a tree and you think it's some coincidence, you have to rethink whether you have emunah. The leaf falling off the tree is part of a divine, perfect system. So the Neshama says to the Seichel, I don't rationally understand Hashgacha. I don't rationally understand reward and punishment, schar v'oresh. I don't rationally understand this whole thing with Bias Mashiach. I don't understand Chiyas HaMesim. And then the Seichel said, why don't you understand these 4 things? He said, what do you mean why I don't understand them? Because if I open my window and I look outside, it doesn't look like there's any Hashgacha. It looks like the whole world is a hefka place. It looks like, as I mentioned, the teacher left the room. and everybody's fighting and shooting spitballs, and the place, the Africa place, doesn't look like there's a system running the world. Chas v'shalom. It looks like it's chaotic. Second problem is, I don't see schar and onish. I don't see everywhere where there's a tzaddik, he's being rewarded, and where there's a rush, he's being punished. I don't see that. I see sometimes just the opposite. So if you want to talk to me, the neshama says, about some system, what system are you talking about? And if the system doesn't work in the eyes, the naked eye of the human being, if it doesn't work, then what do you want me to believe in about something I didn't see? The Spias Mashiach, which is a reward, Mashiach will come. And Tchias HaMesim is a reward. Nobody's seen it. Perhaps Yecheskel in the Haftorah of Shabbos Chol HaMoed Pesach, depending if Yecheskel's, the Nevuah there was a Nevuah, what actually happens, Machlekes Nigmar. But either way, no one's really seen Tchias HaMesim. That's really an article of faith. And nobody's seen Bias Mashiach. That's an article of faith. And if these things are rewards, I look out the window in the world I live in, I don't see the system of reward and punishment. How would I understand the system of Bias Mashiach and the system of Tchias HaMesim? So that's why the Neshama says, I'd like you to give me a rational understanding of these four what are beliefs. I'd like to know them and understand them. And again, this comes from the Ramchal, the Shalom, the Chovos Halevavos, many other shitas. The pasuk v'yadata hayoyim v'asher boiselo v'echo ki Hashem u'leikim b'shamayim mima'av ha'la'aretz mitachas ein oid. V'yadata hayoyim, and you should know. V'asher boiselo v'echo, and then it will seep into your heart. But it begins with a yediyah. You need to know that God's the one above, below, and there's no other God. You need to know these things. So we're on page Gimel Yudalit. And the question that the Seichel is going to deal with is, what is the purpose? Purpose, Tachlis. We talked about Tachlis. Everything that God does has a purpose. There's nothing that is purposeless. And this goes back to our education when we were kids, right? The appendix, you don't need your appendix. It's some leftover thing that from many millions of years ago, some monkeys or some prehistoric human being had an appendix. He needed it to digest dinosaur meat. But now we don't need the appendix. Molars, you don't really need those molars, and you don't need this and you don't need that. It's part of an evolutionary process, and our bodies have not yet gotten rid of the appendix. So if you have an appendix problem, just get rid of it, take it out, you don't need it. Tonsils, who needs their tonsils? And we grew up with this idea, these are things that you don't need, they're purposeless. And this infiltrated into the yeshivas and infiltrated into girls' schools, that there are parts of our human existence, parts of our bodies that are there that we really don't need, they have no purpose. And they're there because of some evolution. They didn't use the word evolution, God forbid, but we were taught this idea of purposelessness. There are things in our body that are purposeless, and that's not true. Everything has a purpose. You may not understand the purpose, and sometimes you may not like the purpose, but everything has a purpose. God did everything and continues to do everything with a purpose. So Amar HaSeichel, he's beginning to answer the question, what is the meaning of the existence of man? And what is his job, his avoda? So that I can understand, the neshama says, what's the tachlis? What's the purpose of all of creation? The purpose of this whole world, the purpose of all events in the world. Explain to me this, the beginning. Explain to me this rationally, this big question. What's the purpose of all this? The world's 5,780 years old. A lot of things have happened in 5,780 years. A lot of things. Major historical events, minor historical events, and events that we don't even know of. The world's gone through billions of people, billions of trees, billions, who knows how many blades of grass. What is the purpose of all this? Where is it leading to? Amar HaSeichel, so the Seichel said on page Gimel, Yudalid, Hayesod Harishon She'olav Omed Kol Habiyun. The first principle you need to know, upon which the entire structure, the whole binyan, the entire construction of the whole universe is on the following principle. Sharotza Harotzon Ha'elyon, God willed, not that God needed, God willed. Shiyah ha'odam mashlim es atzmai v'eskol haniva b'shvilu. God created a perfectly imperfect world. I'm sorry, I forgot to bring my t-shirt out today. Please, I'll bring out my t-shirt tomorrow. Perfectly imperfect. God created a perfectly imperfect world so that we can join him and finish the work and make the world a perfect, beautiful, wonderful place. And this way we become partners with him in creation. We mentioned the Gemara yesterday in Shabbos, Kol Omer Bayechu Erev Shabbos, Kilo Nasa Shutov LaKadosh Baruch Hu Ma'aseh Bereishis. There are opportunities to buy partnership interests in the creation. And those partnership interests are still available. You can buy a partnership interest in the creation. V'zeh atzmoi, the Ramchal says, this is what we read yesterday, Yezchusoi uschoroi. A person who participates in this partnership and does some work to perfect the world. Now, I need to say something here. I don't want anyone to get excited and walk away from the Ramchal or walk away from what I said and said, Lubling's teaching about Tikkun Olam, okay, that has other ramifications, Kabbalistic ramifications, Tikkun Olam, and there's Tikkun Olam organizations. Some of them we know are, so to speak, off the cliff. I'm not talking about that Kabbalistic, we're going to do Tikkun Olam. I mentioned several times in Shiurim, I once read an article from some Tikkun Olam organization requesting, this was years ago, that Jewish people around the world not light Hanukkah candle on the 8th night, and instead on the 8th night use an electric menorah. Why? Because it reduces carbon. Candles, the burning of candles produces carbon. And as Tikkun Ha'olam, we want to make the environment a better place. So if every Jew around the world did not light candles on the 8th night, or either did light candles but didn't light the 8th one, I don't recall exactly, but this would reduce around the world carbon and would help the environment, and we would be an example to the rest of the world about how to preserve the environment. Okay, so I'm not talking about that Tikkun Ha'olam. I'm talking about not even the words Tikkun Olam. I'm talking about the perfectly imperfect world that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to be mashlim, to make it complete. Okay, I'm not dealing in Tikkun Olam to fix the place. Let someone else talk about fixing the place. I'm talking now about being mashlim, finishing the work. And when a person joins in this project, in this partnership with the Rebbeinu Shalom, to make the world a more perfect, a more perfect place, to be mashlim, to complete it, Ze atzmo, this that he does in order to accomplish that, it is his merit and his reward. He gets a merit for working towards the perfection of the world. That's a merit. It's a zchus. And it's his zchus, usachore. And it's also his reward. Now I'm going to read the Ramchal. The Ramchal's now going to distinguish between merit and reward. We all know there's a difference between merit and reward. A person can be told that what you've just done is a wonderful thing and you merit a tremendous reward. Wonderful. He's been recognized as meriting a reward. And then they say to him, in a year from now, we're going to throw a banquet dinner in your honor as your reward. There's the act that a person did that merits him a reward. There's a merit and a reward. So the Ramchal now explains, Uzachusai, what is the merit that we're talking about here by working to perfect the world? because it is he who is working in order to gain this perfection. Ukshiasigeyu, and when he gains perfection, sof sof yehu hamushlam. When a person works on perfecting himself, that was the principle upon which the whole construction of the world depends, that a person should perfect himself, and through that he would perfect the whole world. And each person working on himself to perfect himself has the ramification is he's helping to perfect the entire world by perfecting himself. And each person donates to this partnership, and then eventually we will have the world that we want. The end of the process is if a person works on perfecting himself, who's perfected? He's perfected, and the world around him is perfected. So while he's working towards a goal, the goal itself can also turn into being a reward. Listen carefully. The goal itself can be a reward. So you hire Ruvain to paint your house. And you tell Ruvain, if you paint my house, I'll give you $100. Ruvain comes, he paints the house and does an unbelievable, beautiful job. Different colors, different textures, paint, unbelievable. He finishes the job and he says to you, nope, $100. You say to Ruvain, look, I want you to walk through each room here. Ruvain walks through each room. You say, Ruvain, how beautiful is this house? Ruvain says, my work is beautiful. Nobody paints like me. And he has a big smile on his face. And he has a nachas from the job he did. Look at the beautiful paint job I did. You say to Ruvain, you know what? The nachas you got from the paint job is your payment. Why do you want $100 from me? Look how happy you are from the way you painted the house. You have such a geschmack. You have such a nachas. You're so enjoying your work. Look at your beautiful work. You're enjoying it. Now you want $100 from me. So of course we know in this world it doesn't work. You go to a din Torah, you have to pay Ruvain the $100. But imagine if man made the goal. He wants to become a partner with God in perfecting the world. And perfecting the world means he's going to work on himself to become a better human being, a more perfect human being. And at some point, he looks at himself in the mirror and he says, I'm different. I'm a different person. I don't have the rage I used to have. I don't have the ego I used to have. I treat people differently. I think better thoughts. I think nicely. I do things for people. And I'm happy to do things for people. I used to hate doing things for people. Look at me. When a person looks at himself and is able to say that, you know how much a geschmack that is to the person, that he was able to change himself and become a better person? And then the person looks up to Rabbanu Shalom and says, Rabbanu Shalom, no, give me a shtik olam haba. Give me a shtik olam haba. Look how I changed myself. I'm such a better person. Give me a piece of olam haba. No, do you really want that piece of olam haba? Do you need that piece of olam haba? Look who you became. And how did you become that? Because the Rabbanu Shalom gave you a Torah that made you a better person. And you learned the Torah, you became a better person, a more moral person, a more ethical person. And you went out and taught morals, and you went out and taught ethics. And you went out and did things for people. And people began to appreciate you and what you learned, and now they want to learn. You made the world a more perfect place. You made yourself more perfect. You made the world a more perfect place. So built into what you're doing, which is your merit, built in there is literally the reward. Look at me. Look at who I've become. Thank you, Rabbi Shalom. But where does Olam Haba come into this? Avada there's Olam Haba. Chas v'sholom, we don't want to become tzedukim by tusam. Avada there's Olam Haba. And that's the Olam Haba that the Rabbi Shalom gives us. So we could be misanig beziv shchintoi l'netzach netzachim. But the Ramchal here is telling us a very important thing. You get a merit for perfecting yourself and working on perfecting the world. Ukshiasigeu. And when you accomplish that, you can enjoy it because you did it. It's not a free lollipop. You worked on yourself. You made yourself the better person. You made yourself a better world. You sweated to do this. This is your work. Enjoy your work. Enjoy your accomplishment. Scharoi. And what's the reward? At the end of the day, you're the perfect person. You started in such an imperfect way, and with Rebbeinu Shalom's Torah and Rebbeinu Shalom's mitzvahs, look who you became. And then a person will be able to enjoy Olam Haba l'neitzach netzachim in that perfected state. This is a very important yesod, which we'll go into a bit tomorrow again. Rav Friedlander, in his commentary at the bottom of the page, has a very important footnote here about understanding this concept of joining in perfecting the world. It's not only your merit that you did it, it also turns into the reward, because you're working towards perfecting yourself. And then when you perfect yourself, you accomplish the perfection, and now it's your perfection. And now you can enjoy it. You can enjoy what you accomplished. And that itself is a form of schar. And we all understand this. We all understand when we work on a project, whether it's a work project, a home project. I read an article a few days ago that one of the big things that's happening in America is everybody wants to be a gardener. Everybody wants to be a gardener. There's not much to do. People don't really want to walk outside. There are cities that have lockdowns, especially older people who generally supposedly like gardening. People are into gardening. They're buying from Amazon gardening books. They're ordering gardening supplies. And you know what a garden looks like in Flatbush. There are big gardens in Flatbush, but people talk about their gardens in Flatbush, between Avenue J and Avenue K, or Avenue I and Avenue J. They have these little gardens in the front of the house, little garden in the back of the house. They have little plants, little bushes. We're not talking about the 200-meter gardens that you can have in Eretz Yisrael. But Mashiach, people are turning to gardening. Why? Because they spend time on it. And it's a beautiful thing to do, because after you work on your garden, you want to stay in your garden. You look around, there's beautiful flowers, beautiful plants. Some people have these little waterfalls they put into their gardens. It's beautiful. And it's not like you just did it and then you go into your house and look for something else. People like to go back into that garden every day. Why? Because they want to look at it. Look how beautiful this is. I did it. It's my work. Look at my beautiful work. I want to enjoy it. When you look at it, you enjoy it. And through the Torah and mitzvahs, a person is able to look himself in the mirror and say, look at me. Look at me. Look what the Torah and the mitzvahs did to me. I'm a better person. I treat people better. I treat my children better. I treat my wife better. I treat my husband better. I treat my parents better. I treat my friends better. This is unbelievable. I'm a different person. I like myself now. It's geschmack. And like looking at a garden that you love to look at, you can begin looking at yourself. So not only is learning Shmiras Torah mitzvahs a merit that you'll get, for which you'll get Olam Haba, which is the equation we're used to. Do Torah, learn Torah, do mitzvahs, you get Olam Haba. We have a new equation now, and that's what we're going to talk about in depth tomorrow. The new equation is learn Torah, do mitzvahs, become a mushlam, become a better person, perfect yourself. Now that you're a perfect person, you're a more perfected person, Olam Haba is a place where you should be. It's a different equation. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you for helping build the Beis HaMikdash. We're going to continue building tomorrow. And thank you for listening, and thank you to Shmuel for making this possible. Everybody in Klal Yisrael that needs a refuah should have a refuah. All mankind, the good dimension, should all get a refuah shalema. Those that need nechamas, should have nechamas. And all of Klal Yisrael should get the Yeshua. The Rebbeinu Shalom should treat us like the kinderlach that he loves, and he does treat us that way. But we have to hear the message. Kinderlach, taking a step back so that you can take a step forward. When you take a step back from your children, the last thing you want to see is they're walking backwards. You don't teach your children how to walk backwards. First, you teach your children how to walk forwards. So Rebbeinu Shalom is taking a step back, and he's asking us to take a step forward. He doesn't want to take a step back. You don't teach children to take a step back to go in reverse. So we should be mispalo and say out to Tehillim, Rebbeinu Shalom, your kinderlach love you, and you love your kinderlach. Give us the Beis HaMikdash, give us the palace. We're going to put the guards in the palace. We're going to treat the palace like it's the king, the sovereign king's palace. And you're going to have tremendous nachas Rebbeinu Shalom from your kinderlach. Everybody have a wonderful day. Sei gesund.